everybody, and welcome back. We got the Outlet Pass here, and we're ready to discuss all of the new big things that have been going on in the NBA. Most notably, the blockbuster deal that sends James Harden to the Brooklyn Nets. We're going to break down all aspects of that trade for you, the winners, the losers, and how we think it's going to affect the league. And we're also going to talk about how the NBA is handling COVID, what we think they should do in the future, and how we think it's going to affect the season. So to start off, I'm going to send it over to my man, John, and he's going to break down the aspects of the trade for us.
It's obviously a huge trade, 14 deal. So obviously the Nets get Harden, the Rockets get Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs, 4 first and 4 pick swaps. Pacers get Karis LeVert in a second rounder, and the Cavaliers get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. So my first thoughts on this better work for Brooklyn, because if it doesn't, they just mortgaged their future. And we know how that worked the first time they did that from the Pierce Garnett trade. I mean, that was just a bad trade, obviously, because they were on the end of their careers. I mean, he's a little overweight. I think he'll definitely get back into shape. I think that was just a little of him being frustrated with Houston and not really wanting to try there. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think off the bat, I like this trade for Houston a lot. I mean, obviously James Harden, he didn't want to play there. I mean, we all saw the pictures of him. He had gained like at least 20 pounds since we last saw him. And, he's just been partying all the time. So, I think it's a good move for the Rockets to get rid of him. And I like the haul that they got in return. I think Victor Oladipo is a really good player. I think it's going to keep them competitive. And I understand, a lot of these picks, they might not be lottery picks because these are picks coming from, Brooklyn and Milwaukee. And these are teams that are likely to be in contention for a while. But, the Rockets just need something. I mean, they had no assets before this trade. They traded them all away, in their quest to win a title for Harden. So I think this trade really works out well for the Rockets. And, John, I kind of agree with you with the Nets. I mean, this is kind of it. They're moving all in on these next couple seasons. And, I mean, they've thrown away their bench. They've thrown away their future. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, whether this can work. Because, at the end of the day, they have, 3 of the most talented basketball players in the league. And, this is a star-driven league. And, that's what you need to win a championship. But, at the same time, you do need other pieces besides the 3 stars. And it's going to be interesting to see if, the star power of Harden, Kyrie, and Durant can, compensate for the lack of depth and the assets that they actually gave up.
Right. I'm going to completely agree with you on that one, Tom, because the trick now for Harden is reinventing himself on the fly. Like his team is no longer going to revolve around his supreme isolation skills. And there's going to be nights where he's not the first option. He's second, third, and maybe even fourth, depending on whatever bench the Nets decide to, pull up. So, with all these MVP caliber players that are now, top options on his team, how are we going to make sure his ego is in check, that he's going to perform well for the team and not just for his own sake?
For sure, yeah. I think just that fit is definitely going to, how are those egos going to clash? Like Kyrie, I mean, it's been well established. He had the whole fallout at the end with the Celtics. And that's another thing. There's a lot of talent here. How is he going to deal with other guys needing the ball? Because it didn't work out that well in Boston the first time. Forced his way out of Cleveland. I mean, he's one of those guys. He doesn't like compromise. So I think that's been well established. I'd question his commitment right now because he's out wearing him, not with the team, just taking time off, not even injured, not wearing a mask at like a sister's party or something. I mean, you have to question his commitment. Harden showed up out of shape. Right now, you have to question how much you guys really want this. Obviously, if it all works out, they're the best team in the league. I think the only team in the league who could even challenge them was the Lakers. And even that, I think the Nets would be the favorite. But I think it's a question if the egos are going to be able to coexist. I mean, these guys are all used to taking a bunch of shots. There's going to be nights where someone's going to only be able to take 10 shots. These are all superstars. Are they going to be okay with doing that on a day-to-day basis? So I think, to me, the only way, if they can make this work, this is a great trade. But I have severe doubts it's going to work, just from a chemistry
Most secure
standpoint.
piece the most secure piece in my mind on the Nets, at least, is Kevin Durant because he's just back to play. And that's his main focus right now. He's just glad to be back on the court. We saw his comments earlier when people were questioning Kyrie and his pregame methods with like the burning the sage and everything and his meditation. And he was just concerned about getting a dub. And that's what the mindset I think the whole Brooklyn Nets organization needs to have amidst all the drama that has circulated with their team in this past week. Like, they're just coming to play. And I feel like a lot of people are forgetting that Spencer Dinwiddie is like out. He's gone, and he was a focal point for what this team really could have been, and would have been exciting to see how he was going to be able to produce. So they can't just be heavy on the three now superstars they have on the team. Like, they need to be able to share that well. It'll be interesting to see how that happens. But a real underdog in this story, I'm feeling, is Karis LeVert, because now he's in a different market, obviously in Indiana and outside of Brooklyn. But I think he has a real opportunity here to elevate his game even more. And I think the Pacers are willing to give him that torch so he can really, put everybody on his back and take them to a promised land.
I just want to say, Spencer Dinwiddie, he actually is still on the Nets.
I know he's still on the Nets. I'm just saying he's injured.
Okay, yeah.
He's
I thought you
injured.
meant he was gone, but
No, he's just out for the season.
yeah, but I think I'm questioning though, like for the Nets, are they just coming to play? Because Kyrie Irving, to me, he clearly isn't. I mean, Kevin Durant, it's crazy to think about now because a few years ago, he was one of the most hated guys in the league. By default now, he's kind of just like, because it's just Harden and Kyrie have had their problems. He kind of just seems like the best guy on that team in terms of commitment. I don't know. I just think it just feels like it's going to be difficult for that to work out just from the ego standpoint, chemistry standpoint, the lack of depth, because it's all on them too. Like, it's not if it's not working and they have no one to fall back on. I mean, DeAndre Jordan, at this age, how much can he still do? I mean, you said Dinwiddie's out. It's just going to be tough for them. I mean, they're really relying on those three guys to get them over the hump.
Yeah, John, you're right. You raised some good points about, are they all committed? And I think what's going to be key to this, I think Durant really has to step up as a leader here. I think he hasn't really shown it yet in his career, because in Oklahoma City, Westbrook was really the loudest guy on that team, in Golden State. I mean, it was never going to be his team there. And I do think Kevin Durant has it in him. I mean, he's supremely talented. People around the league generally like him, except for probably Westbrook. But I think he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to be the leader because, like you said, John, surprisingly or not, he's probably the most stable guy out of those three. And he needs to be the one that keeps Kyrie and Harden in check. He really does, because he's probably the only guy that they're going to listen to. And
looking outside. Oh, my bad, team.
No, you're good. You're good.
I was saying, just looking outside of the Nets, a real winner in the trade out of all the teams who are involved, and I'm completely sold on the Pacers. I mean, they sent away Oladipo, who was a player on an expiring contract, and they brought in LeVert. He's athletic, he's skilled, and he signed for the next 3 years. So with the young core that Indiana has, that's with Malcolm Brogdon, Miles Turner, TJ Warren. Obviously, yes, Indiana is a much smaller market, but they have to be creative when it comes to team building. And I think they really won here because they were able to maneuver some pieces to get a team that's going to hopefully stay intact for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana, I think while we were wondering why we just trade away Oladipo, I'm not even sure he wanted to be there. I remember hearing rumors he wanted out at the beginning of the year. So to get him, now get Karis LeVert, he was a big part of that Nets bubble team last year that exceeded a lot of expectations. They played better than people thought they would. He's still developing into a pretty good player. So with that, TJ Warren, when he gets back from his injury, Sabonis, Turner, Brogdon, that's a good team in the East still. They're going to be competing, like hoping to maybe win a playoff series in the East. But yeah, I think they're definitely, that was an underrated part of it. I think Pacers, in the long run, this trade's going to work out better for them.
Yeah, the Pacers are definitely a real winner here. One team that I think I'm not really sure what their role in this trade was, the Cavs. I mean, they got Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. They're promising young players. But I mean, they did just trade for Andre Drummond last year. So you'd think maybe they don't want bigs. I mean, what do you guys think, the Cavs really got out of this? Do you think it was a good trade for them at all, or do you just think it was kind of meh?
I don't think that they have to be considering trading Drummond. There's no way they would just make this deal because they have Love, Allen, and Drummond now. So I mean, you can't play all three of them. In the old NBA, you couldn't play three guys like that, much less in the modern NBA. So I mean, yeah,
the Cavaliers have 21 feet of centers. That's crazy. And I honestly, by next season, I think only one of them is truly assured to be on the team. If the Cavs are smart, I think they'll give Drummond a ton of minutes to play to show his dominance on the court. That's why they brought him here in the first place. And then they'll take the best deal at the next trade deadline. I feel like Drummond has to be the clear choice here, in their center to keep. But Jarrett Allen has shown a lot of promise in his later time with the Nets, so it'll be interesting to see how those two go at it.
Yeah, for sure. I think unless you want to play Drummond at point guard, which I do not expect them to look to do. Yeah,
point guard Drummond.
Yeah, Allen's the young player. He's still growing as a player. Definitely, you want to ship Drummond out, ship Love out, let Allen grow with Sexton, Garland, Okoro. Maybe get another first in this year. Just let those guys grow, get some more picks. This could be an idea. I mean, if they're choosing Allen over Drummond and Love in the long run, this was actually a decent trade. On the surface, it seems stupid, but I think when you really think about it, if that's their plan, because Cavs aren't exactly the best run franchise in the league, I think we can agree on that. But I mean, if they handle this the right way, this was a good trade for them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, John. This was definitely one of those trades that happens, once every few years. Massive deal, players moving around, and I don't think the NBA is going to be the same after this one.
Yeah, I think just last one I mentioned the Rockets. I think this was actually a really good trade for them. I mean, adding Oladipo, they get those 4 pick swaps, and you're still bringing in Victor Oladipo, who I'm assuming will be a little bit more committed. I mean, they still have a decent roster for this year. I mean, Wall, Oladipo, Christian Wood's probably going to be an all-star this year. See how Cousins comes along. I mean, Eric Gordon's still there. They have some decent players. I mean, even for this, I can see them making I don't think they will, but I think they could definitely compete for a playoff spot this year. And they have some picks back in the future. I mean, things are looking really bleak this offseason. I think this is as good a trade they could have gotten. So I think Houston, honestly, is probably the winner of this trade to me.
All right, so now you think we should transition to the COVID stuff?
Yeah.
All right, get that going. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about the COVID situation in the NBA because, it is getting kind of serious. I mean, we've seen multiple postponements. I mean, the Celtics didn't play for a week. It's getting kind of hairy out there. So what I'm going to ask you guys is, what do you think the NBA needs to do? Do you think a shutdown is imminent? Or do you think that there is a way where, the season can continue on schedule, and keep the players safe?
Well, I think that they should do a temporary shutdown, not like a 4-month one like they did last year, but just like a week, like a couple of weeks, just let everyone kind of isolate for a little bit, like get everyone cleared of COVID, and then just come back and with a fresh slate. And because also you don't want to see games where all the star players are out, and it's just like Philadelphia, they had that one game where everyone was injured, and they had Tyrese Maxey taking 40 shots. That's not. I love Tyrese Maxey. He's a great young player. He should not be taking 40 shots at this stage of his career. So I think the league definitely should down from a player's health standpoint, first and foremost. I mean, it's not a good look if your whole league is just getting COVID and you just keep on forcing everybody to play. But also just the product's not going to be as good if everyone keeps saying COVID. Guys are going to start to question, why am I even here? If I have a family and stuff, so why would I want to put myself at risk? It's just going to dilute the quality. I think it's important that they just take some time off and then just come back in a few weeks.
I think the hardest part about coming back into the game, post once you've had COVID or once your team has been impacted by COVID, is getting your body back from that recovery time. Like, you're supposed to refrain from physical activity for is it like 2 weeks max, or at least 2 weeks, before you can step back onto the court. And like, yes, these are elite athletes, and they should be at the point in their lives where they can bounce right back. But like you said, like for those who aren't those all-star caliber players who are maybe trying to find their roles on the team, if they're not able to play for 2 weeks and then they got to get back into it, that's going to be a hard transition for them.
Yeah, you're right. COVID really does take a toll on people. Even the most healthy of people. It's going to have a little bit of an effect. And I think one thing the NBA has to really be mindful of is what they're asking their players to do. Because George Hill, he had a quote. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something about how he's a grown man, and they can't tell him to just shut himself off from society just because of basketball. And I think that's something to really consider, because obviously I want the NBA to keep going. I love watching the games and all that, but at a certain point we have to take into account the effect that these protocols are having on the players. I think we have to make sure that we're not just forcing them to hole up in a hotel room every day. I'm not saying they should be out clubbing every night, but we do have to give them time to see their families, because it takes a toll on people when you have to quarantine like that. And I think if that means we have to shut down, I'm all for that. What do you think, John?
Yeah, for sure. I think remember last year, Paul George, he talked a little bit about like his like mental health was like impacted. I mean, that wasn't a bubble, it was a little bit worse, but like still like not being able to do anything, just gotta be stuck in that hotel room every day. I mean, people forget like these are still human beings. I mean, just because they're like guess elite athletes and doing things that not many other people can do, they still like have families, they still want to like do some things. I mean, obviously, yeah, like maybe like situations like James Harden, and we don't go to the strip club every night, but just kind of making sure like they can still have somewhat of lives. I mean, they're like their whole life can't revolve around basketball. So I think just kind of giving them just some like the ability to do some things while being safe at the same time is something the league's gonna have to figure out soon.
Yeah, we just have to make sure that we keep player safety at the forefront of this, because the last thing we want is guys getting sick from COVID, and guys having their lives and their careers affected by this ugly disease. We really don't want that.
It's a really weird balance in a time for the league, for the fans. There's so many pieces that are being affected by all of this. And like I said, it's got to be the players first, and it's got to be the player safety that's put first and foremost. Uh, Without that, then they lose sight of what the league is really for. As much as things are in place for entertainment and there's a fan experience that's wanted, we also don't want to see stars that we look up to playing being hurt and being sick. Carl Anthony Towns just tested positive for COVID, and he lost his mom and other family members to it. So I can only imagine how hard that's hitting home for him right now, right? So even outside of those physical impacts, there's those mental ones as well.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this latest edition of the Outlet Pass. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, we'd really appreciate it. And just stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, guys.